technology that derives information, security related information from software products and services, and maintains logs of the events that happen, security events that happen from time to time. So by using SIEM, which is Security Information and Event Management, you get real-time analysis of the security alerts generated by the network hardware and applications. So why have we taken up this topic today? So traditional SIEM that provides log collection, correlation based on rules, and workflow management is no longer effective in detecting advanced attacks, because security threats are an ever evolving field and new techniques keep coming up each day, and our applications and software need to be up to speed to meet those threats. So with the advance, and particularly with the advent of analytics, automation of threat intelligence, and improvement in collaboration technologies, one often thinks whether SIM is dead or really evolving now into a platform. So through this webinar, we will look at the evolution of SIM into an integrated platform to provide network anomaly analytics, threat intelligence integration, and its automation, and of course, a framework for managing next generation SOC to detect advanced attacks and its monitoring and improvement, and also to keep abreast of the latest attacks and keep pace with the changing threat landscape. So what all can you expect on the presentation that's coming up from Chandra Prakash Suryavanshi from Aegis Networks? So the key takeaways that you would expect from the presentation are the threat landscape and how existing monitoring and response capabilities are ineffective in detecting and responding to advanced attacks. Moreover, you would also learn about how an integrated approach can improve monitoring capabilities and prepare an organization for detecting and responding to such advanced attacks. Next, you would know about how analytics and intelligence can be added to a security monitoring program. And last but not least, the concept of co-managed SOC and the benefits in managing next generation SOC capabilities. So through the course of this webinar, we would keep sending some poll questions to gauge your interest into this domain and how prepared your IT infrastructure is to meet the latest security challenges. So the moment you receive a pop-up question in between the presentation, we request you to please submit your responses immediately. Towards the end of the webinar, we'll collate your responses and let you know as to what's the state of security as far as Indian enterprises are concerned. So, and just to give a brief background again as to how SIM technology is used for collecting logs and from disparate systems and helps in aiding the correlation and compliance, but limits the analytical capability for threat detection. This webinar will look into all the various techniques that are followed for its automation, for how the landscape, the entire threat monitoring landscape has been automated, and the ability to keep pace with the business use cases, and also help in retaining collections for performing analysis. So I mean, these are all very different topics which shall be neatly be integrated, I'm sure, from the presentation that's coming up next from Chandra. So with this, I hand over to Chandra Prakash Suryavanshi, who is the SVP and head of Aegis for India and APAC. Over to you, Chandra.
Thank you, Adish, and welcome to today's webinar, and really appreciate everyone's time who decided to give it us their 45 to 60 minutes from their busy schedule. So today's topic, whether SIM is dead or not, or it is evolving, is really a pertinent topic. You today just go to Google and see it is being discussed at many places. You will see a lot of articles which are writing the obituary of the SIM. There are webinars done by some of the SIM companies telling them about how SIM is ineffective and what is the next thing that is going to happen. There are a lot of attacks that have happened in past 3-4 years, and almost all of these attacks have happened to companies who have SIEM in place. And the data suggests that these attacks that have happened for months together were undetected by an SIEM, because SIEM primarily depend on logs, and most of these advanced persistent threats attacks do not leave logs behind, and they behave very as a normal user and continue their activities. So this topic even provides certain comparisons about how SIM is effective or ineffective and how we can make effective it. In fact, some of the vendors even claim that their product can completely replace the SIEM. They can do much more with what an SIEM can do by either using machine learning and artificial intelligence, or they can do security analytics and integrate certain components of threat intelligence, automation, and endpoint user analytics. So this is where we stand as far as this topic is concerned today. So that's why we thought that this is a good place to really put things together and focus our effort and energy on really saying that is SIM dead, or can we complement SIM with certain more technologies to make it effective in detecting advanced threats and putting up our incident response mechanisms in place to remain ahead of the threats and attacks. So truly the answer to this question also depends on the context that an organization works. What really you call it as an SIEM? You call SIM as just a box which collect logs, does the centralization and run correlation rules, and then you see events and alerts or incidents onto your screen, or is it something more? So at OJUS, we have seen many SIM deployments. To be quite honest, most of them are considered or so-called considered as failed deployments due to limited coverage of the corporate assets. More often than not, the reason is not the implementation of the SIM as a technology. Mostly it is the amount of use cases or SIM rules that the companies have built. We have seen that in most often than not, companies implement by default SIM rules which are related to Active Directory account lockouts or basic database collection, drop tables, and admin activities, etc. So basically the problem is not exactly an SIEM. SIEM is one technology which is heavily dependent on understanding and integration of your CMDB, your threats, your use cases to make it effective to a large extent. So is SIM dead, or really SIM is still a living, breathing creature and is evolving? In today's webinar, we will see some points. We will see some points to justify the utility of SIM and how it is still a lifeline for most organizations' monitoring capabilities. We will also see certain points which are again SIM saying that SIM is no more effective because it's driven by rules, and whatever is driven by rules purely are really getting outdated. So first slide, yep, whether is SIM dead? So you see a brief history about an SIEM. An SIEM is a two-decade-old technology. It was started from managing the logs and doing the centralization of the logs. So it has event collectors or log collectors placed at 10, 12 different places to collect logs from network devices, security devices, your servers, applications, database, and then aggregate it at centralized place so that you can retain those logs for 5, 7, 9, 10 years, depending on what your compliance requirement is. And then you started evolving from log management by creating certain correlation rules to get a single pane of glass, as well as to get certain basic policy violations and security alerts when it happens. So when it started, obviously SIM was being treated as a silver bullet. It was really on the monitoring backbone of most of the organizations, and whoever has to comply, especially in financial and telecom sector, which are heavily regulated, implemented an SIEM solution. And some people came up with a different model, whether it's an on-site SIEM deployments or this SIM is deployed on a multi-tenancy model, so on and so forth. It helps you reduce signal to noise in one sense because you collect logs from 500 say different sources or 200, 300 different devices. You don't have to really do log analysis manually for those 200, 300 devices to see policy violations or to see any sort of attacks and alerts that may come in. You can in fact just create use cases in the SIEM and you can only monitor what matters. So for example, if I have to really see an Active Directory logs and I have to identify failed logon attempts, I have to identify users who are being added to administrative group, administrator's account lockout, forced password change, multiple password login attempts which are slow in nature but happening from multiple IP addresses, or multiple usernames are being tried from the same IP addresses. All those things I really need to go to the Active Directory and then filter logs based on event IDs like 528, 530 to see how accounts are faring. So what I could do is that I can create those 4, 5, 6 use cases in SIEM, and I don't need to really see the logs or monitor the logs in of Active Directory. I can just have my ALE agent installed on my AD, which sends logs to centralized log collector, which sends to the log processor, and my use cases run on them, and then I get a real-time alert. So it does help me in reducing signal to noise. I don't have to find a needle in the haystack. I don't have to look for hundreds and thousands of logs and search for anomalies, what's going on. So that's what one part of it, wherein the SIEM was fantastic, and that's how it was really getting deployed. SIEM could also do multi-device correlation, which means that I can take up a log from my web application firewall, which tells me something is going wrong with SQL injection attempts from a particular web server who is actually connected to my application and then to database. And then I can also get certain logs from my database telling about some activities like SQL queries which are running, extracting certain information from the tables which is not supposed to, or there is a select all query and so on and so forth. So what I could do is that I can correlate logs between my web server and a firewall and also from my database and construct a use case saying that at what stage of attack I am in, and I can then do a proactive response. But what happened? Eventually, as the time progressed, this SIEM really got soon reduced to having a very limited sight because attackers' tools and techniques and procedures started getting more advanced. They started using advanced persistent threats, malwares which are encrypted, which cannot be detected by signature-based technologies. They were bypassing corporate perimeters due to proliferation of mobile, cloud, analytics, users who are mobile, so on and so forth. With this, SIEM was really not able to detect those attacks because it was really too much distributed. It behaves normally. My point tools were not able to have a logs, and most of the attacks do not even have logs that are left behind. And finally, what happened is that SIEM, which was being used for compliance, it started with that. It was great in managing compliance, but compliance management is not risk management. We have seen time and again, there are cases wherein companies are 100% compliant to say PCI DSS, ISMS, SOX, but still they get exfiltrated, they get attacks. A lot of classic examples like Target, Heartbleed are in the same boat. So Heartbleed was PCI DSS compliant, and still they had a security attack, and it was going on for months together before they identified a lot of data exfiltration has already happened in terms of cards. So this is where we stand. So is SIEM dead? Well, if you look at the statistics and if you look at how SIEM has progressed so far, definitely it looks like it's dead. But is it like a theoretical explanation, or do we have a data points to prove the SIEM is dead? So let's look at some data points. Now you see this slide, the data from our monitoring capability definitely suggests that SIEM is dead. Now you have two data points. One is coming from the study of IBM with Ponemon Institute, and the other is coming from Mandiant. So you see that 100% of the victims who were attacked had updated antivirus software. So this clearly points out that signature-based technologies are just not good enough in preventing any sort of advanced threats. If you see the second data points, which says that 63% of the breaches are reported by third party. Now this is really serious. More than half the time, you do not realize that you are attacked, which means that if you have a SIEM, you are monitoring, you don't know you are attacked. It was reported by someone else, either your partners or your customers. And if you see the third data point that really enforces that SIEM looks like dead, that 243 is the median number of days advanced attacks were going on before they were detected. It means that it takes almost 8-9 months for me to really detect an attack while the attack has started 8-9 months before. With the kind of breach and sophistication of attack, one can analyze that what all things you can lose really if that bad is your monitoring capability. And last point, which says that 100% of the breaches involved stolen credentials, which means either an identity theft happened or a privilege escalation wherein the identity was misused. And this is a common use case which is available in all SIEM technologies, but still we were not able to detect. Now, if you see on the right side, where IBM studies mentioned, you will see more or less similar number of data points. That 83% of the companies have been hit by advanced persistent threat in the US. 9 months is the average time before the attack is detected. Now we see the fourth data point, which says 30% number of compromises were repeat. So not only you were compromised, almost 1/3 times you were compromised again, and still you were not successful. The last data point is more interesting. It says 70% of the time intrusion happened, which does not need a lot of sophistication, which means with the availability of common or old vulnerabilities and exploitation tools, even certain scripts which are available, people were able to do exploitation. It can be through simple spear phishing attack that it started, or a simple malware intrusion, or it is as simple in many cases an SQL injection, which still to large extent contributes, to some attacks which are originating from the web. Now, this data definitely suggests that SIEM is dead. There is no comparison of our monitoring capabilities versus what attackers have. On one side, you see the attackers are collaborating. There is an underground economy of attackers. There is a dark web. There is organized crime. And they collaborate very well. They share knowledge. There are people who are specialized in identifying zero-day vulnerabilities, creating exploits for zero-day vulnerabilities. There are organizations who provide bulletproof hosting so that you can host your websites which are malicious. There are servers that are running which will allow you to provide different sort of attacks. You can in fact buy and sell them. You can buy a zero-day vulnerability in the underground economy. And then you have a whole set of hacktivists and organized crimes which are collaborating together to really perpetuate an attack. Under such conditions, really it is extremely difficult for standalone organization having a lack of talent with a simple monitoring capability, dependent completely on the log and how strong use cases you create on them to really detect and remain ahead. Obviously, then it points to the same fact that eventually every company will get attacked. What you have to do is that you have to improve your monitoring capabilities drastically to identify the attacks sooner rather than waiting for such long period of time, and have a right incident response process in terms of both technology, the procedures and people controls to really contain those incidents. So this is where we stand. This is the time wherein we are saying that we are contemplating whether SIEM is dead or not. Obviously, in going forward, we will see that SIEM is dead or not. There are certain points where SIEM is very effective. So there are those points we will see. Now, at this point in time, we will just take a very quick poll. This poll will just try to accumulate data whether our audience has an SIEM and how effective the SIEM is. So Adish, you want to start with the poll question?
So you'll have a question popping up on your screen right now. All right, so do you have a SIEM solution? It's a very simple question. So quickly press a yes or a no. So I think everybody has, right? So time's up. Over to you, Chandra, again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can pop up the second question. I would really want to understand from audience whether the SIEM is effective or not. So there are 3 questions in poll 1. Yeah, that's right.
So you'll have the second question in this series coming up. Do you believe that a SIEM solution has been effective in reducing security incidents? So again, you can quickly poll in your responses. All right, there we go. Yeah, we've got the responses, right? So now the third and the last question in this particular series. Here goes. What is one big point of improvement in the existing SIMs? Where do you feel improvements are required? So you can again quickly select your responses. Yeah, I think fairly mixed responses and right. So here we go. Over to you, Chandra, again.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So thanks for providing the responses. That will definitely help wow our audience thinks about what
अब show कर दो.
SIM is capable of and what improvement areas are needed in the SIM. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. Now we will see certain things which will tell that why SIM not able to detect advanced threats. So far we have seen that yes, this is true that SIM is look like incapable. It's not able to detect threats. Either it is the use of limitation of the locks availability or the right use cases, or well, there are attacks which does not even leave locks. So let's take a quick example before I move, to some of these points. There was a recent attack a couple of years back, and there is a lot of data points available for doing this forensics, which was done by Kaspersky. So this attack happened in Karbanak. It's a banking attack started in Ukraine, Russia, and then moved on to many other countries. And it is estimated that almost $1 billion was lost. So if you see this attack, how this attack started was more or less similar to how a typical advanced persistent threat life cycle starts. So people got emails or they got infected by visiting a website which was malicious. They downloaded one applet or a plugin basically for their browser. So whenever they used to run this browser, that particular I can say malware basically also got started, and it used to make one change in the registry and a process needs to run on the endpoint. Now if you see this attack when it happened, none of the protective technologies were able to detect that, because by default inside to outside HTTPS is allowed. So somebody visited a malicious website. They downloaded something called as adware block or something, some free plugin from their site, and their browser got infected. Now whenever we used to start this browser, at that time only this particular malware used to get started, and it used to run an internal process. Obviously, the antivirus and anti-malware was not good enough because they work on signature-based technologies, and you can change a couple of strings, and then you can really bypass the signature, the anti-malware. Now, once the endpoint got infected, it started running a lateral scan, which is internal scan, identifying where the admin machine is. What happened is that because you don't have a firewall, once one of the internal system is infected between internal to internal, all the scans really go undetected, and you do not have any endpoint APT, or I can say, or endpoint agent that actually monitors the processes and baseline that. That's extremely difficult to do. So there was no logs available. Now, once the system got infected, it started communicating over different IP addresses to domain name mapping because of domain generating algorithm, got connected to one of the command and control site, and then they started monitoring what a normal user does. The normal user was operators, and less than $5,000, they were actually doing the settlement of the transactions. So they learned, the attackers then controlled the system, and they started doing transactions to their bank accounts. So a lot of money was lost in this entire game, and though the bank had an SIEM, they were monitoring their databases, they were monitoring their applications, they were monitoring antiviruses, anti-malwares, firewalls, IPS, everything. The entire attack happened, which was completely undetected by an SIEM. So this is what the limitation we have with an SIEM. First, most of these attacks which are happening, they are not getting detected by your point tools. So if you are not able to detect by, say, firewall or a web application firewall or an intrusion prevention system or an endpoint antiviruses, which is often the case, then you don't have logs anywhere. Neither you can prevent, nor anybody is really raising an alert. So you get pass. So that's where the first point is, that the attack speed and sophistication is really advancing due to mature underground economy. As I was telling you earlier, that now there is an entire underground economy called as dark web. There is a classic example of Silk Road a portal where you can actually trade zero-day vulnerabilities. You can hire people who can actually do exploitation for you. They provide you with all the tools. It is estimated that with $250, you can in fact buy a bulletproof hosting. You can buy one zero-day vulnerability. You can buy an exploit so that you can exploit that vulnerability, and you can buy certain tools for even doing data exfiltration. In fact, the underground economy is so matured that they provide you with resources who will help you exploit at a cost. And in fact, there are certain websites like Espionage as a Service was a website which was recently used in US and one in Australia, wherein you can just pay $1,000, name the name of the company or university or whichever you want, and they will run a DDoS attack for a week through 20-25 different data centers in across countries where they have compromised the endpoints, and then they run these attacks. What is also happening is that newer technologies that are coming up, be it mobile, cloud, use of analytics, they are supplying new set of vulnerabilities that can be exploited. And attackers are persistent and they behave normally. That's why they are extremely difficult to detect. On one side, old threats don't disappear while new threats come because of the threat landscape which changes. So that's the challenge that is huge in terms of SIEM to become effective. So what is happening? On one side, you have new and advanced variety of adversaries, and the threats continue to grow. The real question for us is that for every kind of threat or every kind of threat scenarios, how many attacks I can build and how many use cases really I can configure to detect them. I have a limitation. I can configure 50, 60, but I cannot do a complete consultative exercise to identify newer and newer attacks. On one side, I am being challenged to include certain applications also into my SIEM so that I can identify databases related security controls and policy violations and my web application related, etc. On the other side, how many use cases can I create for that application? How I can identify the normal behavior and identify what logs they have and what anomalies they can have, what all scenarios are possible, which we typically call it the threat modeling, that I can really build it into my SIEM. The second is, on one side, adversaries are getting more sophisticated and advanced because of the availability of the cyber weapons in underground economy. Vulnerabilities and exploits that are available to attackers are increasing, and really they are having unlimited supply of attack scenarios. So how do I really protect myself? And the third is that most of these attacks, because attacks are not being detected purely by logs. Obviously, like you can give many examples, data exfiltration is one, lateral movements, internal port scans, all these things cannot be really detected by logs. There are no logs in between. So how do I really make use of my SIEM? And that's why it goes like it's becoming ineffective. So the key question is that if SIEM cannot detect advanced threats and I cannot create unlimited number of use cases and it has limitations, okay, agreed. The question is that what do I do? Do I have an alternative? So it's easy to say that you can SIEM is ineffective or it has its own set of limitations. Obviously, the key question is that if not SIEM, then what is that can replace SIEM, or what are my alternatives? So in the next slide, quickly we will see a couple of alternatives that we have. So most of the vendors or new technologies that are coming up, which are claiming to replace SIEM, are dependent on three things, and that is what we are going to discuss now. One thing is about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So let's see about machine learning, what exactly it means. Machine learning systems automatically learn program from a large set of data, wherein we don't really need to code the program. The rules and alerts are built or patterns are built or inferred from the data. So what it means effectively is that give me all the data, basically the logs or even the flow data from your network, servers, applications, databases, security point tools, etc. I will learn over a period of time what is a normal behavior, and then I will use my machine learning to identify anomalies. So this is one way by which I am not driven by rules or the use cases that I have in SIM. I am dependent on my own learning and creating a baseline, then identifying all anomalies that I can have from the logs. So simple example can be every day I come and I see how many logins are happening, what is my average failed logins, from where logins fail, what is the geolocation, which user logs in typically with what IP addresses, from which geolocation, what protocols they use, what is their behavior of browsing, which sites they browse, where all they go, what is the protocol usage for a particular user, so on and so forth. Now, once I baseline all this data, and suddenly one of the user which never used to go to say websites in Russia is going there, or transferring 20 MB of data to one website, or doing an FTP, which the user never used to do. Obviously, these are all anomalies that I can identify. And then obviously I have an artificial intelligence which allows me to search a large set of database, do what a normal human being can do, and it can also help me replace my L1 engineers in my SOC. So how artificial intelligence can help? Basically, it's a kind of automation wherein I can say for each of the use cases that I build, I also build a validation and response process, and then this validation and response process, which can be like alerting, or it can be in some cases blocking certain IPs. There are tools available in the market like Invotask, which can do that and leverage them. So I don't need people to monitor 24/7. Whenever a use case is triggered, it will be validated, and then, and if found true positive, respective L2 engineer or a resolution point of group will be notified either through an email or an SMS, etc. So this is where people are claiming that we have built certain algorithms, Bayesian theorem or advanced that, and we can create patterns and baseline the behavior both user and network, and can use artificial intelligence and automation to identify threats. So this is where one of the key point is that can replace SIM. Well, there is a limitation. The limitation is that it evolves over a period of time, and we cannot really say that it is accurate in detecting anomalous behavior. We really do not have today in the market a data point which can suggest that which machine learning and artificial intelligence technologies have detected how many malwares, how many botnets, how many abnormal behaviors, and is there a benchmarking? Because they are dependent on building patterns, then how many patterns you can really build, and how strong your statistical model or your Bayesian theorem or whatever you are using algorithm for machine learning and creating patterns is dependent on. So it's extremely difficult really to tell me that yes, you implement a machine learning platform in your enterprise, give all the logs to it, and then it will start learning on its own over a period of time. It will start being effective more and more, and then it will learn everything that is normal and start giving me everything that is abnormal, and I can see them and I can tag them whether it is just normal, which is exception, or it is really something which is wrong that's going on. So these are my two basic limitations because of which machine learning and artificial intelligence, though it's being mentioned as a next generation technology, something that some vendors claim it will replace SIM, but that's not the case. So you can look for companies like Cybersecurity or many other companies who claim to be learning from machines and using trying to replace SIM, what all SIM can do. The second technology that is available, which to large extent says that yes, we can replace SIM, is based on security analytics, which is not based on pure rules. It forms again take all the logs from multiple devices, your firewall, IPS, VPNs, and does analytics to identify anomalies, and it also takes the flow from your network, like you can configure a mirror port onto your multiple network segments, and you can also take endpoint data and fit it into a large data, basically Hadoop or any other technology which depends on flat file system, and then big data, and then create analytics, behavior patterns, etc. So this is also has similar kind of limitations what we have in machine learning. So security analytics may depend on machine learning and may also depend on rules. So they generally combine the best of both, wherein you can feed the large data set in terms of logs and flows, and you can identify, you can have searches, and you can build full packet capture in that for running forensics. Plus, you can also see the patterns, and you can define your own rules based on what you see. And second is that it can learn on its own too. So it can be a combination of both. The third part is threat intelligence. Obviously, we all know that threat intelligence comes in many forms. You have alien vaults, which give open threat exchange. You have SANs. You have threat intelligence coming from portal in the form of PDFs, in the form of websites, which gives in the form of RSS feeds, so on and so forth. The challenge with threat intelligence is that it is difficult to ingest and make sense of it, that what is applicable to me and what automation can I do. And obviously it requires a lot of capabilities and continuous analysis to make it an actionable threat intelligence. So this is where I stand as far as my alternate technology goes. If SIEM is not there, you are saying SIEM is dependent completely on logs, and SIEM only does the correlation, and there is a limited number of use cases that you can build. Obviously, my alternate is machine learning and artificial intelligence, or I can pipe all my logs into a big data, including user data and network data, and then I can run certain sort of analytics, which might include machine learning, so get best of both, and then also do some automation of threat intelligence using sticks or taxi protocols, and then create an alternate to SIEM, which is best, which it can replace. So this is the alternative. Obviously, is the alternative good enough? As I stated, that machine learning and artificial intelligence has limitation regarding the number of patterns, algorithms, accuracy, and very difficult to benchmark against one product to another, because we don't know how they fare. There is no fair comparison really to be made. The second point about security analytics, which runs the best of both the worlds, has more or less similar kind of thing, that how do I really create benchmark and how over a period of time it runs. And threat intelligence, as I said, is really not a replacement of a SIEM, but it's more of an addendum which one can have. But there is very limited uh, actionable that you can get from threat intelligence feeds, unless and until you do not spend substantial amount of time in continuous analysis and make it actionable. So at this point in time, we would like to again do a quick poll just to identify whether you have any complementary technologies to your SIEM. I have seen organizations who have implemented SIEM, plus they have implemented some sort of security analytics also on top of it, and they take threat intelligence feed and automate it using taxi protocols to their SIEM. Plus the other type of feed, they actually who have a threat hunter who does the analysis and compare and do reverse malware analysis, vulnerability research, identify actionable, and do that. So what our really audience has. So just a quick poll. Yeah, over to you, Adish.
Yeah, sure.
You want to
So here goes.
questions? Yeah.
Yeah. So which other complementary technology have you implemented with SIM? And the choices are given below. And at this point, I would also like to remind you all that we'll be sharing the poll results towards the end of Chandra's presentation. So yes, done with. And now the second question in this particular poll series coming up. So the biggest challenge in managing advanced threats via monitoring capabilities. So waiting for your responses. Yeah, we are getting now. Good. So, right, I think we are done with the response. Right, over to you, Chandra. Back.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So in summary, basically what we are trying to say is that the adversaries can really exploit the learning process itself. They can understand our model that a machine learning can build. They can understand how a normal user can behave, and then they can also circumvent it with as normal behavior as possible, which most of the adversaries does. The second point is any predictive model in information security will really be pushed to the limit. You just imagine how spam engines evolved, you know, coming from IPs, then changing IPs, changing mal servers, doing relays, so on and so forth, really to evolve and still do the spam. And spam is still number one kind of threat which most of the banks faces. And last point, which is threat intelligence. Obviously, we understand that threat intelligence can be automated in a very, very limited way. You only have a set of bad IP addresses, which are known bad, hosting malwares, etc., bad URLs, and certain files, their names and the checksum values, which contains malicious code, like a PDF file or a Word with macro. So there is a limitation. I can really use threat intelligence automation only for them. For all other, I really need a lot of people to manage IOCs, to reverse malware analysis, etc. So now that we have seen both SIM, its limited limitations, and also we have seen alternative. And to summarize the question, really we don't know. On one side we have an SIEM, which is running on rule basis, has logs. On the other side we have other technologies, but it looks like they also have limitations, though they are claiming to be an alternative. So where we are? Let's summarize this. So is SIM dead? Yes or no? Both the arguments are on your side. We say SIM is dead because it is good at collecting logs from disparate systems. It does aid in correlation and compliance, but of course there is extremely limited analytical capability and there is no forensics because we are not monitoring flows. We are not doing full packet capture. Second, SIM is reactive. It is driven by rules, wherein security is really not static. You cannot be really dependent on rules because how many number of rules you will really create. Security is a continuous process. I cannot say a point in time. Last, second last, cannot provide entire attack in a single window. Basically the attack behavior. Though we say that it provides a single pane of glass, but because of limited situational awareness that you can have in SIM, really this is a big problem. So what is situational awareness? Just I want to give 10 seconds to that. Suppose there are two planes which are coming in opposite direction and they are headed towards each other. It looks like they are going to collide. But if you have a situational awareness, which means that what is the height of these two planes, exactly in which direction they are, and if you know that, you will be able to take a call whether they will collide or not. So basically, if you throw a data at me or a log at me, but do not provide me the context or everything around that, then I will not be able to take a call. That is where the SIM has limitation, that it does not have in individual logs or a combination of logs the entire chain of an incident that I can see the entire attack vector. I really have to search the past logs with certain IDs, maybe in QID or any other SIM, the way it stores, and then build the entire attack behavior with me. Because when I get an alert, I get an alert based on one correlation rule, while the attack would have happened, for which I may not have a correlation rule. And last part, most modern and advanced attacks do not leave logs, so obviously my SIM cannot do much. So these are the arguments in a summary which can be given, for whether the SIM is dead or not. Now, if you have to see whether uh, SIM is dead, why? The truth is that organizations still need data aggregation and correlation. You cannot take away from it. For compliance purposes, as well as for basic network hygiene, security hygiene, you will always have. Second, SIM still provides you a single pane of glass and it forms the backbone of all your monitoring capabilities. You can do add-ons, but you cannot rip and replace SIM. Third, the argument can be given that one can create a better attack and kill chain based which are behavior dependent and they are not purely dependent on security point tools. Say for example, when one of your endpoint is infected and it is having a domain generating algorithm and it is trying to connect to different websites so that on command and control, you can still identify that behavior. And if you see your DNS logs, and if you see say more than 8, 10, 12 failed host resolution attempts by a single host, you can understand that there is something wrong. Nobody really opens a browser and types 8, 10, 12 times, within say 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes bad URLs that the DNS attempt will fail. So that's a kind of sign or an indication which you can build your kill chain based method. The last part, you can always automate and integrate multiple technologies in a SIEM and make it as a platform for better threat detection. And there is where we think SIEM is moving towards. So you see how SIEM is evolving as a platform. All modern SIEMs are having data collection capabilities and obviously compliance benefits, what a typical log management provides. They provide you with normalization of logs, correlation, and analysis capability. That's how you build an SIEM. All SIEMs also have now capability. Most of the SIEMs, and those who don't have, are actually tying up with third parties and getting this flow information. So you can get network visibility and advanced threat detection from your network behavior anomaly detection. You can also configure detection based on users. So either you can use machine learning, or you can even use basic analytics to identify user behavior analytics. So there are tools like, for example, if you take QRadar as an SIEM, you can always take Q flows and J flows, or you can, say RSS security analytics, you can have NetWitness, which provides you the capabilities of complete network flow coming to you. They also provide you forensics capability in terms of full capture and replace. Then you also have ability to reduce breaches by risk management. Say, for example, if you want to integrate with your asset management, identify configuration changes, then correlate those configuration changes with the threats and use cases that has been triggered, you can do that too. Then the network traffic and application content that is offloaded by forensics. I just said full packet capture in NetWitness, or QRIF, which is incident response module of QRadar, and almost all popular SIEM does that. So you can have that. And the automation that you need of runbooks. Say, for example, I have 30 use cases. For each of the use cases, I have a playbook. I know if something happens, I can run through a certain steps to validate whether it's a true positive or false positive. And if it is a true positive, I have a runbook that will determine what actions needs to be taken. In fact, I can automate those runbooks also. There are certain incident response platforms available which can seamlessly integrate with your SIEM, which will allow and help you manage the incident lifecycle, including runbook automation. Then second last part, I can also do indicator of compromise management and vulnerability management by intelligence. So as I stated earlier, that certain threat intelligence feeds you can automatically consume in your or ingest in your SIEM, like a bad IP, bad URL. So whenever any of your internal systems are connected to those bad IPs or bad URLs, you can see those alerts in the SIEM. And that is not dependent on the use case. That list keep getting updated every now and then. And reporting and visualization for different management, that is like one of the key important thing that you have in SIEM, that can also be done through presentation layer. Yeah. So really, if you ask me, SIEM is really becoming a platform. It should be really a truly integrated solution which is built on common code base. And it has a single data management architecture, allows you to search irrespective of how distributed your environment is, and it can integrate the best of analytics, the risk management, forensics, log management, correlation, automation of threat intelligence, and then reporting and visualization. So this is one example that I have pulled out. This example, I have pulled it out from QRadar. I'm not saying this is the only SIEM which is really acting as a platform. In fact, you take McAfee, or you take, for example, RSS Security Analytics, all popular SIEMs are slowly moving towards that. So what you have security devices, servers, networks, data, all activities, which you can monitor everything. You can log every activity, including user activity and network activity, so that you can have the right set of situational awareness. You can correlate intelligently. Basically, you can connect the dots to disparate activities. Your SIEM allows you to do user monitoring, identity monitoring, network monitoring, like a large data exfiltration and behavior anomalies, including IP reputation and geographic locations. You can baseline and do anomaly detection using analytics. And then finally, you can prioritize for action and do the runbook automation. Now, once you have a SIEM environment, you can always have threat intelligence feeds coming into it. You can have internal threat intelligence feed, which comes from logs. It provides contextual information. You can integrate even vulnerabilities into your SIEM environment. So you can see on one side your critical assets or sources which are giving logs to you. You can see vulnerabilities to those assets. You can also see threats to those assets, and you can also see threat intelligence which provides you new vulnerabilities, new malwares, as well as new IP addresses which are impacting or affecting those assets. And then you can take a conscious call and build an internal threat intelligence environment. And then you can automate it using TICS protocol. Then finally, you have a reporting and visualization, which you can leverage. So that's how SIEM is really becoming a platform. Again, to emphasize on the same fact of QRadar. So if you see QRadar, it has a base platform of an SIEM, which has event collectors, which collect events, event processor, which process the events and the use cases. You have management module in terms of ESM. Then you have Q flows and J flow coming into it and acting as a network behavior anomaly detection. It has this advanced analytics platform engine. Then it also has X-Force threat intelligence, which can be automated. You can have QVM to scan vulnerabilities and import it and see your assets and vulnerabilities into the same light. You can integrate with your CMDB to get assets along with its criticality. You can also say, for example, integrate with Resilient Systems, which is an incident management platform for complete workflow-based incident management, automation, and runbook automation. So that's how this SIEM is really going the way, and it's acting as a platform. And this is one of the classic example which tells you that yes, we can plug a lot of things as an add-on to SIEM and make it more effective. Yeah. So this is the conceptual architecture. Basically, I will not go into detail, but it just tells you that how SIEM can ingest information from configuration management tools and build an asset library, vulnerability management and AppSec to build a vulnerability database, and then correlate various incidents from endpoints, etc., and does full capture. So this is the benefit that you will get once you build the entire integrated security intelligence function. Obviously, in the technology, you have all the best of technologies. You have SIEM, you have big data platform for analytics, you have vulnerability management, threat intelligence, and then you have response runbook automation. From the process part, you will build a security program which is connected. It automates your incident escalation, forensics, governance, and foundation processes, fully integrated via workflow, provides full capability and governance in terms of visualization, reporting, and action. So what is the challenge in really implementing SIEM as a platform? More often than not, we have seen that people have a challenge of availability of the right set of talent, because threat hunting is a dedicated job. Identifying vulnerability research, IOC management, or reverse malware analysis is extremely difficult. And threat intelligence has come in so many forms that only people are able to automate the IP address and URLs and check some values, not beyond that. Second, application integration in business use case building is a continuous process. It really needs a lot of talent to build those use cases and fine tune. And for applications, you also need to build a lot of custom parsers and do customization. For SOC operation, you need minimum 10 to 11 people to provide 24/7 coverage. Considering the iteration, availability of talent, cross skill, that is also getting extremely difficult. And last part, forensics, even though they provide, it's a specialized skills, difficult to really manage and nurture talent. Other parts beyond availability of talent is it is very costly to really buy a full suite of technologies. Really, how many I can buy? I can buy a SIEM based on EPS, then I pay for my flow management, then I need investment in consulting services, subscribe to for a professional threat intelligence feed. I need a huge amount of database for my big data and storage, and then retain logs for so long. So obviously, infrastructure management becomes a big cost for me. So if you see a package, overall a package sometimes runs in a few tens crores also for an organization which is large with some 50-60,000 systems. And analytics as a function obviously is a slow in learning. It needs large data set, and we really need to fine tune a lot, and it needs continuous effort and time. Last thing, yes, we need a roadmap. How do we start? how do we walk, then crawl, and then run? And we need handholding across this life cycle to make SIEM effective. So these are some of the challenges that we have. How can OJAS help? Well, just a minute on this. We have a service which is obviously we do implementation services, integration services. So all these things that we spoke about, we provide them as a service. We do the consulting services to identify the business requirements, convert it into a technical requirements, identify the right SIEM. If you already have an SIEM, do the optimization of existing SIEM, create use cases, define processes, automate the process, and then manage and monitor. Now, as far as management and monitoring is concerned, which is also a continuous process, you can reduce the cost to almost 1/3 because we provide incident management services, which is monitoring and notification and response management. On SIEM administration, we provide end-to-end services by jump servers kept in your premises, can be managed either on-site or offshore. We build the workflows, we do policy management, log source management, health management, days, passers, license management, flow management, custom passer developments, and then finally, last but not the least, we provide you analytics, dashboard, and visualization to our own platform. It is called as Security Analytics and Visualization Platform. There is a site SAVP by OJAS. For more information, you can go and verify there. So this is our advantage. Yes, we can manage the entire program, highly scalable, 1/3 of the cost. We provide entire consulting, system integration, and operation services for you. So you don't have to worry about the talent and the limitations that we spoke earlier. You can leverage our accelerators. We have a 200 use case libraries, banking, telecoms, enterprises, all use cases are integrated into that. You will have access to our best processes, even custom process creation. We have built a library for them. It's extremely low cost to deliver, and it's a quick startup. Within 30 to 60 days, you can run. Last slide about OJAS. Yes, we are a 7-year-old company funded by IDG. Second round funding by IYB Capital and RCBF. We have 400 plus customers present in 3 geographies, which is US, the Middle East, and the India. We have 360 employees at this point in time, out of which 290 are certified, and we have a 38 people team in managing security, intelligence, and operations across. That's it. So I will open it for questions. I think we are just running out of time. We have 2-3 minutes, so I can take up, 3-4 questions from you. Please, if you want to ask questions, go ahead and put it on the chat.
Yeah. Hi, Chandra. So we have a couple of questions with us right away that came up during the course of your presentation. So the first one is, here goes. In providing a managed SIEM service, do the raw or processed logs travel to the platform and also get stored in the platform? And to continue with the first question, how does security and transactional privacy is being maintained in a managed SIEM service?
Yeah. So the first part of the question is that when we provide a platform and you own the SIEM, so there are 3 models. One is wherein you own the SIEM and we are managing and operating for you through a platform. There is no raw logs that actually gets to the platform anytime. The raw logs are stored at your enterprise or your organization, whichever is the client. The process logs are also stored at the client's organization. Only when we receive an incident and we want to collect evidence or put up an entire attack chain after validation of the incident, only those relevant process logs travel to the platform. And when we raise an incident, we provide that information into the incident. So the first question to answer, no raw logs or no process logs travel to outside of the organization into a platform, except when there is a true positive, we are validating, and then we need information which we can fetch from the logs and then put it into the incident. Now the second question you asked about the security and privacy of it, that's an interesting question. A lot of companies do ask this question, that what will happen to my security and privacy when someone else is monitoring my SIEM. In some cases, I might have database activity monitoring wherein the logs contain private information. So if it is in country, yes, there are no issues. There can be issue in certain European and some of the US countries when IP addresses and certain personal details which are there in the logs can also be considered as private information. And sometimes the transaction logs might have a private information. So to circumvent that, yes, there are solutions available wherein you cannot have any, you can have a kind of for database activities, you can keep that off the SIM, which most of the firms does, so that no one monitors them. And as far as logs contains IP address and certain username or certain details which are considered private information, they are required as a part of raising an incident and situational awareness. Otherwise, everything you will have will be only IPs which are internal, and then it will be difficult to trace it back to users. So yes, security and privacy is actually generally maintained in the same country. There's no issue on that. And for certain countries, you can definitely leave the database activity, those aside outside of the same, and monitor them directly through their database or security or fraud teams which manages them.
Okay, okay, Chandra. So the second question is, how successful has been big data and security analytics in detecting advanced threats? And based on your experience, please provide some details of use cases.
Yeah. So big data has, as I said that earlier, big data has been much spoken about, and the difference is that when you send all the logs from multiple security devices, applications, database, network devices to the SIM, similarly you send all this information to a big data, and you can also have a flow which goes into the big data and you do analytics. The problem with analytics and based on our experience is that it's slow in learning, and it is completely dependent on the algorithms that you use and how many patterns you can build really. So the best of breed technology which runs by rules and statistical model is what decides the success of this. So I have not seen anywhere, at least in my experience of some 10, 11 SOC build up or consulting or seeing, we have seen this really working very, very effectively. I can recall the days when intrusion prevention system used to come in two forms, signature based, and then second was heuristic or learning based. So just like learning based intrusion prevention systems which benchmark or baseline the user activities and behavior were never very successful, and everything falls back to a signature based intrusion prevention system. Same fate is what we are slowly seeing in big data security analytics purely for security as far as the behavior anomalies and other things are concerned. The only exception is that from that point and this point, technology is really evolved. There are algorithms and some of the companies are really building that which are providing certain competencies to identify anomaly related threats. So it is more like an add-on. It definitely cannot replace, and it's too early, I believe, right now to say that how effective they are as a part of security analytics to really detect anomalies. I think SIM will continue to run by better use cases, and then using analytics to identify anomalies will continue to be as more of an add-on rather than being the central theme.
Chandra, for the useful information. We don't have any further questions. So at this point, before we close, I would like you to share the results. Right? Can you access the results of the 5 poll questions? Okay,
Not exactly.
I'll share it with the audience then. Yeah. Okay. The first
Sure.
question was,
You can share in.
yeah, the first question was, do you have a SIM solution? So 76% of our audience has a SIM solution, and 24% claim they don't have. Right? So the
Yep.
next question. The next question was, okay, here goes. Do you believe that SIM solution has been effective in reducing security incidents? Security incidents. So 22% of the audience say yes, 11% say no, and but a huge majority of 67% partially agree with this. Right?
Okay.
So I think a case for the different solutions that you've been talking about to in order to upgrade the existing SIM solution. Right? So
Yep.
now we go to the third poll question. What is the one biggest point of improvement in existing SIMs? So the results are configuration and change auditing, 38% agree, reporting and visualization, 31%, network flow monitoring, another 31%. So this is a pretty shared result, a mixed result, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah. So the fourth one, which other complementary technology have you implemented with SIM? So 19% say network behavior anomaly detection, 24% say user behavior analytics, 24% for, again, say incident response automation, while the maximum response 33% is for threat intelligence. Now, the last question that we had asked, what is the biggest challenge in managing advanced threats via monitoring capabilities? So 33% claim talent to manage SIM. So this is, they feel, is the biggest challenge. 40%, which is the maximum response, they say defined and automated processes is the biggest challenge, while 27% say technology coverage. So that was it as far as the poll results are concerned. And I've just checked again, there are no further questions coming up. So with this, I would like to thank you, Chandra, for a very informative and very insightful presentation that you've given. And last but not the least, I would like to thank our entire audience for being a very patient listener and for taking time from their schedule and joining us for this. Right. So this whole recording, in case somebody wants to go through it again, so this entire recording shall be mailed across to all the attendees. Right. So this will be done in within the next 24 hours. Right. So I hope you can go through it, and if you still have some lingering doubts, you can go through the recording again and they would surely be resolved. Right. So thank you all very much, and signing off from here. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.